Apple announced Apple Intelligence today, and a lot of what we saw are things that we've seen before. You can create relatively simple images, you can create text, edit emails, all things that you can do in a lot of other apps. But what really changes the game for Apple and in the artificial intelligence ecosystem is that Apple is doing this on device. Most of the artificial intelligence that we've seen so far is done in the cloud. So when you log into ChatGPT, if you use Midjourney, even when you're using Copilot with Microsoft, you're actually accessing GPUs in the cloud. This is why NVIDIA has had such a massive run over the last couple of years, is because most of the GPUs who are doing this artificial intelligence work, whether it's training models or doing the inference, every time you're asking an AI a question, it's done typically on an NVIDIA GPU. The reason that this is such a big deal is that that inference is likely going to move on device. All kinds of companies have talked about doing this, but nobody's really done it at scale. Apple is going to move their inference onto devices that are already in people's hands. If you have an M processor in your Mac, you will be able to do at least some of these artificial intelligence calls with that Mac. If you have an iPhone 15 Pro, you're going to be able to use these artificial intelligence tools. So this is what's really exciting, and I think transformational about this announcement specifically. It's going to move the point of power in the AI ecosystem from the cloud to the device. This is a trend that I think we're going to see over and over the next few years. And this is just going to be a first step in that direction. So a lot of different implications, but I want to get to exactly what we learned today. My name is Travis Hoium. Thanks for watching Asymmetric Investing. Please subscribe here on YouTube for all my content. And thanks to this video sponsor, The Motley Fool. If you go to fool.com/ASYM, they'll give you their top 10 stocks to buy right now. So let's dig into this Apple announcement a little bit more. This is the site showing all of the announcements today from Apple Intelligence, as they're calling it, AI for the rest of us. I think what they're really saying here is that artificial intelligence has been available for a lot of different people under monthly subscriptions. If you know how to use these websites, if you know how to do kind of prompt engineering, the Apple product, as Apple always does, is built to be a little bit simpler to use. So it's going to be using Siri in ways that you would normally at least like to use Siri. Maybe Siri didn't work that way in the past. It'll be accessing emails in ways that are logical, doing proofreading in ways that are logical. So a lot of different things that come out of this, but you can see that there are writing tools, there are image generators. These are relatively simple images. So they have some emojis. They also have some images like you see right here. This reminds me a little bit of Midjourney in kind of the early 2023 days, where the images are kind of cartoony, not necessarily realistic. So it kind of fits Apple's brand a little bit, but is probably also a little bit older model, a little bit smaller model, a little bit more simple to run model, because it's built doing these things on device. And what's unique with this is that they're drawing in your personal context. So it's calling the information that's already on your device. So your emails, your text messages, all that kind of stuff. So you can access it and respond with, hey, here's where I'm doing pickup for the kids, or here's the flight information for a certain flight. So the logical ways that I think you would like to use artificial intelligence with Apple, but hasn't necessarily been available today because a lot of the chatbots that have been available, like ChatGPT, haven't necessarily had access to that personal information. So Apple's leaning into this safety and privacy thing that they've been building for quite a while with these artificial intelligence tools. And this is going to be not only with the iPhone, but also the iPad and the Mac. This is, I think, one of the most transformational things with Apple Intelligence so far is some of the writing tools. And really what they're doing is they're bringing some of the tools that were available with ChatGPT, some of the tools that are available with a product like Grammarly. That's a product I use. Not sure that's necessarily going to be necessary if we're going to move to a world where this is going to be built on device, where you're going to be able to proofread emails, do spell checking, all of that kind of stuff. Some of these capabilities were available previously, but it's really just going to take it to the next level with the large language models that are going to be built into these devices. Some of these smart reply tools could be really interesting. There's going to be email tools. You're going to be able to transcribe calls. This could be really interesting on both a personal level and a business level. You can summarize long emails, get priority messages in your inbox. All really valuable writing tools that will be integrated into the operating system and be available on device. So these are the real fundamental changes, is that they're built into the operating system and they're available on device. Microsoft has announced some of these things for some of their higher powered PCs, but this is going to extend to hundreds of millions of people who have devices in their hands today. Images is another thing. I don't know how many people are creating images on an iPad like this, drawing into something like Notes, but maybe it's something that is much more accessible and so more people start using. And then they call this a new era for Siri. We will see how this plays out. Siri has been really a disappointing product for a very long time. So hopefully this will increase the utility of Siri. Thanks to our friends at The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/ASYM for the top 10 stocks to buy right now. The other thing Apple's doing is integrating cloud-based LLMs or engines into Siri. So you're going to be able to double tap at the bottom of the screen, and then you can ask Siri a question and it will access OpenAI. That's going to be their initial partnership. Management said in some commentary after the keynote that they're going to be adding other services like Gemini in the future, potentially Perplexity. So this is not just going to be an OpenAI partnership, but I think it is really interesting that Apple is taking over the on-device artificial intelligence, and that's really what they're leaning into. This is what makes Apple's ecosystem so valuable, and it'll be interesting to see if this makes their products even stickier, because at the end of the day, if you use an iPhone and you have a ton of your information on an iPhone, and you're used to using artificial intelligence to answer questions, to do proofreading, to do very simple tasks, why not extend that to your computer by buying a Mac? Same thing with an iPad. It's very possible that it makes it harder to leave the ecosystem and maybe grows the ecosystem just a little bit with those additional functional tools. And I'm not sure that anybody else can quite copy that because they don't have the same integration from a hardware and software level. The other thing that we don't know a lot of detail about from a financial perspective is exactly what this is costing Apple. I think it's probably likely Apple is going to have to pay to access these large language models. These are not cheap Google type calls, and there's no real monetization behind them. So if you're accessing ChatGPT, for example, is Apple going to have to pay for that? Well, if they do have to pay for that, that's actually going to hurt their margins because it doesn't appear that they're going to be charging directly for this. Same thing if they're integrating other large language models or other chatbots into the Siri experience. Are they going to have to pay for that? Are they going to get paid for it like they do with the Google deal? This is really an open question in the fact that we don't have a great business model behind a lot of these chatbots. They're not making money. They're not going to be able to write a multi-billion-dollar check to Apple. I think it's likely the money's flowing the other direction. Apple's having to pay for this. So these artificial intelligence tools, and this is something that we've seen across the industry, Meta, Alphabet are companies that their margins over time have come down as they've implemented more artificial intelligence because these tools are very costly. So it will be interesting to see if maybe Apple has a really good quarter or year or two from a revenue perspective, but they actually report lower margins because of the costs that go into the additional RAM that they're going to have in devices, the better chips that they're going to have in design, and the inference cost that goes to these calls in the cloud. So it'll be very interesting to see. But the differentiator today is Apple moving a lot of these artificial intelligence tools onto our devices. And they're going to launch this to hundreds of millions of devices over the next 6 months or so. This is going to be available in the fall. So a couple months from now, very interesting day for Apple and for AI advancements in general, because this will disrupt some of the startups and some of the businesses that are being built in the cloud today. But what did you think about the Apple Intelligence announcement? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe to Asymmetric Investing. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you here next time.